Okay, so we can go ahead and begin. We thought we would begin with Lalita Saki Prabhu sharing an introduction about you, Maharaj. Would that be all right?
Yeah. Could we chant the prayers of the Lord Nrsimhadev first?
Absolutely.
The reason I'm asking for that is I'm very concerned with the devotees who are suffering due to the conflagration, the wars that are going on right now, and devotees and people in general. So I thought that we just started by chanting the prayers of the Lord Nrsimhadev. Can I use my guitar to chant?
Maharaj.
All right, I got the guitar.
因为 Maharaj 非常担忧，就是在乌克兰的这些奉献者的状况，所以 Maharaj 将先唱诵尼辛哈的祷文。
Okay, and usually it's best to leave everybody else on mute because the time delays with Zoom make it really bad to have people chant together. So we'll just chant for 5 minutes. Namaste, nada sing I have, malana nai, iranya kochi, urvakshaka, shirataka, kolai, ituna singa, padatuna singa, yato yamita tuna singa, akina singa, vidayana singa, stringamatim, chanam rapa joy, the stringamatim, chanam rapa joy. Apakara kama lapa pray to come up with the stringam. Dalita, hiranya kasi hudana venga. Hey samadrita, nanani rupa, aida kuri sate, aida kuri sate. Jaya the string of a name, the singer Dave, the singer Dave, the singer Dave. Palad Maharaj, Palad Maharaj, Palad Maharaj, Jaya, Palad Maharaj, Jaya, Prabhupada, 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 Jaya, Prabhupada, Urivo. Jai Nrsimha Bhagavan Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai. So, okay. So, you're the boss. Tell me what happens now.
Okay, Manini Radha Mataji, you can go ahead with Maharaj's introduction.
Yes, Mataji. 那么我们首先就是来聆听一下就是关于 Maharaj 的一个简介。Bhira Krishna Goswami 他是一位ISKCON GBC 的成员，而且是一位 Sannyasi， 也是一位启迪灵性导师。他在纽约的长岛长大，作为西北大学的一名学术的天才学生，他开始阅读由 Krishna 知觉的创办灵性导师 A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada 翻译的伟大著作。Prabhupada 的学识和他的圣洁给 Bhira Krishna Goswami 留下了非常深刻的印象。他于1971年成为佛罗里达州Gainesville 的这个ISKCON 这个 Krishna 知觉的社区的一员，然后此后不久他就成为了 Prabhupada 的门徒。从一开始 Bhira Krishna Goswami 就以他的演说技巧，还有他的奉献精神，以及他对他的灵性导师的著作中蕴含的奉爱精神的深邃的研究而著称。通过这些，他获得了对 Krishna 知觉的深刻了解。1972年，他开始在美国各地进行旅行，并且派发Prabhupada的书籍，在各大学院和大学进行演讲。这种情况一直持续到1974年，当时 Bhira Krishna Goswami 直接参与了 Srila Prabhupada 的英文和西班牙书籍的出版工作。 它还在南美洲、还有美洲中部以及加勒比地区就 Krishna 知觉的这个科学进行了广泛的演讲。1978年初，比尔 Krishna Goswami 在秘鲁利马进入了气绝阶层，他接受了 Sannyasa。在1982年，他来到北卡罗来纳州，开设了第一个当地的永久的 Krishna 知觉中心。1995年，他开始在 ISKCON 的 GBC 任职。Maharaj 认识到奉献者之间需要更多爱的关系，他与 Marshall Rosenberg 研究了非暴力的沟通，然后在此基础上开发了，特别是在 Krishna 知觉体系内的同理心沟通的模型。Hare Krishna.
Right.
Okay, and Maharaj, we were wondering if at this point you want to share why you took up studying EC or anything else that you'd like to share, but in shorter sentences so it can be live translated.
Right. So we're going to do back and forth translation, right? Rather than simultaneous. Okay. So, Om Gana Tumiranda Shah Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshurun Meditam Yena Tasmai Shigurue Namaha. So, when I joined the Krishna consciousness movement many, many years ago, I had the expectation that everybody, all the devotees, would have these like really deep, loving relationships with each other.
在很多年前，我一开始加入 Krishna 知觉运动的时候，一开始我抱有这样的期待，那么我期待所有的奉献者肯定都有一种深厚的爱心关系。
And because, I heard the philosophy of Krishna consciousness that we are parts and parcels of Krishna, therefore we're all brothers and sisters, therefore we should love each other.
因为当时我已经听闻了关于 Krishna 知觉的哲学，那么根据这个哲学，我们每个人都是 Krishna 微小的组成部分，因此我们彼此都是兄弟姐妹的关系。
But one of the things I saw was the conflicts that occurred between devotees and also between devotees and people who were not performing devotional service. And I was very worried.
但是当我看到奉献者之间发生的冲突，以及在奉献者和非奉献者之间存在的这样的这种冲突的时候，我感到非常的担忧。
So, after a few years, I started studying sociology and psychology to try to figure out why people in the Krishna conscious movement and religious people tend to have like really heavy relationships between each other.
然后就是几年之后，然后我就进行了一些关于这个社会学心理学的学习研究，然后我想明白为什么在 Krishna 知觉或者说在一些宗教系统中的这些人，他们都有一种倾向有一种非常沉重的这种社交关系。
And I saw that in Christianity and in the Islamic tradition. They broke up into different groups, and mainly there was a lot of animosity between even different members of the same religion.
那么，就像在基督教的系统当中，或者说在伊斯兰的这个教义系统当中，他们被分割成许许多多这种小的团体。尽管是在这样一个同一个框架的同一个这个宗教体系下，他们也彼此充满了敌意。
So my studies in sociology came up with a particular study that showed that 80% of people who are in religious organizations are less empathic or less compassionate than the people in general.
然后通过这个社会学的这个学习，我发现这个社会学的调查，它表明有80%的在这个宗教体系当中的人，他们倾向于比普通人在社交关系当中更加的缺乏同理心。
So this was a big shock to me because I thought religious people mean love, you know.
那这个非常让我震惊，因为我认为这个有宗教心的人应当是非常有爱的人。
So then I started to study with Marshall Rosenberg, who is the origin and author of nonviolent communication.
那么首先，让我们从这个非暴力沟通它的这个创始人或者说作者这个Marshall Rosenberg，从他讲起。
And he was actually basically a student of Maslow, one of the psychologists, Western psychologists.
那基本上来说呢，他这个人是这个马斯洛这个在西方非常主要的这个心理学家的一个学生。
And I discovered that he did have an answer as to why religious people tend to have more unresolved, heavy conflicts than other people.
而且我还发现，他还真的就关于这个问题，为什么有宗教这个倾向的人，他们倾向于比这个世俗的人反而有更多这个沉重的这种不友好的社交关系。
Because generally conflicts in a society are due to what we call name calling.
那么通常来说呢，在这个宗教系统当中，人们之所以会发生冲突，是源于我们给彼此这个起各种名号。
Of course, in Sanskrit, that's called upadi, or giving someone or something or yourself a designation.
那这个对应的梵文词汇就是 upadi， 也就是说我们给某个人或者特定的事物贴上一个特定的这个物质的标签。
So every religion that I know of, including Krishna consciousness, has a whole bunch of different words where we can label people in a negative way and even in a positive way.
那么就我的调查，我发现不光是在 Krishna 知觉，是广泛的在这种宗教系统中充满了这个各种各样丰富的语汇，去给人们贴上正面或者贴上很多负面或者甚至是正面的标签。
For example, we call people who are not Krishna conscious demons, karmis, rakshasas, meat eaters, malechas, yavanas, yakshas. You know, we have like thousands of different names to call people because we learn these names from the Shastras.
那你知道，我们对于那些还没有修习 Krishna 知觉的这样的这样的非奉献者，我们对他们有很多名号来称呼他们。比如说，我们称呼他们是恶魔，称呼他们是食肉者 Rakshasa、Yavana， 还有 Yaksha 等等，有各种各样的语汇。那么，是为什么呢？因为我们从经典中学习到这样大量的语汇。
But the real point is that nobody's a Rakshasa, nobody's a demon. It's just that people act for some time demoniacally or doing things that they shouldn't do or that are counterproductive. But in essence, they're all spirit souls.
但实际上，这些被称为恶魔的人，他们并不存在真的 Rakshasa 或者说恶魔，他们只是一些人，他们只是某些时候他表现出来这种恶魔的行为，或者说是做了一些不当做的事情，但就本质而言，他们都是灵性的灵魂。
Like Lord Chaitanya says, Jivayara Swarupahoy Nitya Krishna Das. Everyone is a servant of Krishna. And so to see anyone any differently is actually to see in an illusory way.
那么我特别喜欢住查塔尼亚马哈帕布他说的，我们每个人实际上所有的机都是他生来就是至尊主的仆人。那么所以如果我们以不同的眼光去分别看待这些事物，那这是一种这种错觉的眼光。
So every religion has these different terms, these negative terms, and even positive terms are bad too.
那么在这种宗教系统当中，有许多这种负面的语汇，但是甚至它也存在这种正面的这样的语汇。
Like if I say to someone, "You're a good devotee," what does that mean? It doesn't really have any meaning. Then we just see the person through that particular label we've put on them.
那比如说，我们说一个人是好奉献者，那这个有什么意思呢？实际上，它根本没有任何意义，而只是我们透过这样特定的一个标签来看待这样的人。
Of course, we should be aware of a person's behavior, but that behavior is not the person.
当然，我们应当去关注尤其在意别人的行为，但是我们要注意，这个行为并不是他这个人本身。
In Christianity, there's this interesting statement that Jesus Christ made. He said, "Hate the sin, not the sinner."
那非常有意思，在这个基督教体系当中，耶稣基督他曾经说过，我们要恨罪恶，而不是恨这个罪人。
For example, if we see someone eating meat, we don't hate them, but we hate the activity that they're doing. There's a difference between the two.
那么举个例子来说，我们讨厌这个吃肉的人，那实际上我们讨厌的并不是这个吃肉的人，我们讨厌是吃肉的这一行为，在这两者之间有很大的不同。
So a devotee is supposed to love everybody.
所以奉献者他应当是爱每一个人。
So that's one of the tools of empathic communication that help us develop empathy. And so when I learned these tools, I started studying even more with Marshall Rosenberg. I did some intensives with him and developed a whole course and training for those who wanted to learn how to develop more empathy.
那么就是有些这样的工具，我们可以通过这些工具去学习如何去运用同理心。当我习得这些工具之后，然后我就在与这个Marshall Rosenberg 一起进行了深入的研究，并且和他开发了这样相关的课程和训练课程，能够让人们去培养同理心。
And that now I'm dedicating myself to a large degree to trying to, let's say, help the other members of the Krishna consciousness movement develop the loving relationships that Rupa Goswami prescribes in the Upadeshamrita.
那么我做这一切主要是为了想去旨在是帮助这个 Krishna 知觉中的这个别的奉献者，并且真正的能够发展出 Rupa Goswami 在教诲的甘露中所说到这种理想的奉献者的爱心关系。
And of course, I understand that it's not simply a mental adjustment to develop empathy or to deepen one's empathy and compassion for others, but one has to practice that. So the practice is essential to change our consciousness to actually develop love, empathy, compassion for others.
当然，我们要明白这并不是说仅仅是在我们的这种心态上做一种调整，就能发展出这种同理心。那实际上需要大量的实践，而不只是说一说而已，或者说想一想。所以这个实践是这个核心所在，需要大量的这个实践去发展出这样的理想的这种爱心关系。
Okay, so I think we should leave time for questions.
Yes, Maharaj. So, Manani Radha Mataji, do you want to invite people to ask questions?
Yes, we have got the list of several questions. First question from Sri Gandavika Mataji. 老师在讲课中提到猜测，我想了解一下，猜测和假设有区别吗？能深入的讲解一下猜测在共情中的重要性吗？So Maharaj, our teacher mentioned the guessing part of guesswork in the lecture. I would like to know, is there a difference between guessing and assumption? Can you explain in depth the importance of guesswork in EC communication?
Okay, so basically, I believe that you're talking about when we're trying to be empathic with someone else and understand their needs and feelings.
那么我假设你在讲这样一种情况，就是你试图有一种同理心去试图理解对方的这样的需求和感受。
So guessing requires versus assumptions requires the humility that you don't know, and see that a prideful person. Well, there's a designation there. Someone who is thinking more of himself or herself thinks they know everything about other people.
那么关于猜测这个环节，它需要的是当然不仅是言语，它实际上还需要真诚，还需要这种谦卑。这个谦卑就是承认你并不什么都懂，你并不了解另外一个人。那么，假设说我们一个骄傲的人当然这可能好像像是贴了一个标签的这样的一种说法。那么，比如说，假设说我们有些这个特别自我中心的人，他认为他可能什么都懂，他可能懂另外一个人。
So basically, when I'm talking to someone and trying to understand their feelings and needs, I will actually phrase my particular guess in a certain way.
那么，举例来说，当我去跟别人以这样的同理心沟通的时候，我会以这样的一种方式去措辞，就是去特定的去表达我对对方的这样的一种感受或者需求的一种猜测。
Yeah, I will ask them, I said, I don't know. I will actually say, I don't know why your feeling or your needs are like this, but is it possible that it's like that? So if I phrase it like that with my, of course, body language, which is consistent with my phraseology, then at that time I won't be assuming. I will be just guessing, and they appreciate that.
那么我就会问就是我其实不知道为什么你可能有这样的这个需求或者说这样的感受，但是可不可能是这个样子呢？我会这样的去措辞，而且在这样的措辞的过程当中，我会保持相应的做出这样的这个肢体动作，去与我的这个表达相协调一致，去表达出我这样的疑问。所以这样的一种情况，我不是做出一种假设，而是一种猜测。
I mean, for example, if you say to someone, "Are you feeling sad because you have a need for food?" the person will feel that that's rather intrusive. So instead, I would say, "Is it possible that you're feeling sad? And do you possibly have a need for food?" And it's a question of how you phrase it, and especially the body language.
那么举例来说，如果我问一个人说他是不是因为想要就是有对食物的这样的需求，所以现在感受到低落？那么如果我直接这样问的话，好像显得缺乏真诚。那么如果我这样问，那说你现在这种沮丧是不是有一种可能是你现在需要这个食物呢？那么以这样一种这样一种说法，就是比较可以让对方理解。
Okay, I just want to emphasize that body language and tone of voice are more important than the actual words.
那我在此所要强调一点就是，这个语调和你的肢体动作，实际上比你说的话还要有这个作用力。
I mean, for example, I can say, "Are are you feeling sad?" Or I can say, "Are you feeling sad?"
那我可以以这样一种语调，比如说是疑问的上扬的语调说，你是不是感受到悲伤呢？或者说我可以冷冰冰的用陈述的语调说，你是不是感到悲伤？
And in the first one, it's like I'm accusing someone, basically, or I'm saying I know how they're feeling. The second one, I'm just like interested in how you're feeling.
那么第一种可能像是一种质问、责问对方，你为什么会有这样的感受，而不是说表达出我对他真的感兴趣。
The main thing is not to thinking that you're superior to the other person because you know empathic communication. This is a danger.
很重要一点就是，你不要认为就是自己什么都懂，自己理解对方，而且认为自己比对方优越，因为你知道同理心沟通，所以这个是个非常大的这个危险。如果你这么认为的话，
That's that whole problem with designations or diagnosis again. That I am an expert on empathic communication and you know nothing. And that is a great danger when one becomes, let's say, proficient.
那么这是一个很大的一个问题，而且会导致你会就是陷入给别人贴上物质的标签这样一种境况，那就是你认为你在这个同理心沟通方面是个专家，那么这是非常大的这个问题。如果你成为了这个领域的专家的话，
Yeah, empathic communication is not a technique or a series of techniques. It's simply being interested in how others feel, just be interested in others. And of course, in yourself, too.
所以同理心沟通它并不是一门这个技巧，或者说是关于技巧的理论，它实际上是对另外一个人感兴趣。那也就是说，你对另外一个人的感受和他的需求感兴趣，包括对你自己的这个感受和需求感兴趣。
Yes, it's not a management technique. It's not a counseling technique. It's a question. It's actually a mood or a emotion of wanting to connect to others and to connect to yourself. That's all.
所以它并不是一种去管理别人或者说是做心理咨询的这样的一种工具，它实际上是一种心态，就是与他人连接以及与自我连接的一种心态。
In other words, there's no agenda there. If the only thing is, I just want to connect and understand you, or I want to connect and understand myself. That's the essence of empathic communication. You're not trying to cure anybody or to get anyone to do something. That's not empathy.
那么同理心沟通当中，它不存在一种你就必须要达成的一种这样的一种计划，你只是为了去与他人连接或者与自己连接，而且至关重要的就是，你并不是说你一定要去把对方治愈了，解决什么问题，而只是就是或者说把什么事情搞定，让别人来做自己能做的事情。
Okay. Next question.
Yes. Next question from Gita Gamya Mataji. 用同理心去沟通，很容易变成有效控制他人为自己做事。请问怎样来避免这样的结果呢？Actually, she has several questions, so I go one by one.
Yeah, one by one.
Okay. The first question is, when we use communication, when we use the easy communication, it easily become the means to effectively control others to do something for ourselves. So how to avoid that?
That's the big that's the big question. So, first of all, if you're using it to control others, it's not empathic communication. It's just a management technique.
那么首先那当然你这个问题问的是个很宽泛的问题。但是如果说你一旦想用这个同理心沟通去成为一种控制他人的这种想法的话，那实际上它就不是同理心沟通了，而只是一种管理工具。
Now, when I'm interacting with others, I try to understand my motivation. Why am I doing what I'm doing or interacting?
那么当我在和他人这个互动的时候，交流的时候，我会想要试着去明白我对他这个背后的动机是什么，为什么我要这么做。
And I try to understand my motivation and then try to make that motivation simply to connect to someone. And I correct myself if there's the wrong motivation, if it's a management technique or something, if I'm doing it for management purposes. So it simply means being aware of one's motivations.
那么我会试着去理解我背后的动机，只是为了去和对方进行连接。如果说这个我的动机有问题的话，我会进行自我的检查、自我纠正。如果说发现这个动机中有想去操纵他人或者说管理的这样的一个动机，因为这就沦为了一个这个管理的这样的一个工具而不是同理心沟通。
Just being introspective and honest with yourself, and also being aware of your own needs, because before you can be empathic with someone else, uh, you should be empathic with yourself. You should love yourself and be empathic with yourself. In other words, what is my need in dealing with you? What is my need? What is my feeling? And that's basically introspection in a nutshell.
那么很自然的就是基本上是一种自然的这样的一种内省，就是自我的这个内观，你去自省自己的需求。因为首先我们在和他人进行同理心或者说共情他人的时候，我们在此之前首先要共情自己，就是对自己的这个需求和感受进行同理心。那比如说我为什么会这样？我的这个感受是什么？我的这个需求是什么？
In other words, if you're actually practicing empathic communication, it should be life changing for yourself. Your whole outlook on life should no longer be to control others, to manipulate others, but to connect with others and to connect with yourself. That should be your first priority. In Krishna consciousness, of course. I mean, I'm not negating Krishna consciousness.
那么，实际上，这个同理心，当你学习同理心的话，这个同理心对你的生活的作用，应当是给你生活带来天翻覆地的改变。就是你不再是像过去一样想去操纵别人，想去就是控制别人。其实我们只是就是你需要被改变你的这个整个这个世界观，你需要去和他人连接，当然都是在 Krishna 知觉下的，与他人连接，与自我连接。当然我都是在 Krishna 知觉之下，我并不说你去改变，你去停止你的 Krishna 知觉。
Okay, next question.
Yes. Next question. 传教给新人时要注意观察对方的需求，再给他 Krishna 知觉。那怎么把握好尺度呢？因为刚进来的新人一般都是为了满足物质需求。So when we preach to the new friends, we have it's very important to have a clear observation about the other party's need, and then we try to give her Krishna consciousness. But how to grasp the standard in doing that, because they have such new friends always have so many material needs, but not spiritual ones. If we try to get these needs fulfilled, it's not proper. So how to deal with that?
Well, the first thing is that we're not responsible for other people's needs. It would be a mistake to think that I'm responsible, you're responsible for fulfilling other people's needs. Everyone's responsible for their own needs.
那么首先这就有个大的这个错误在这里。那如果你认为你要为他人的需求去负责的话，这就大错特错了。我们每个人都需要对自己的需求负责，而不是把这个责任推给别人。
We can help or facilitate people in trying to understand their needs, but their responsibility is in fulfilling their needs. We have nothing to do with that. And if we help people in that way, they will be more inclined to hear from us about Krishna and Krishna consciousness.
我们只是去协助他人去更好的理解他们自己的需求，但是是他们自己需要为实现自己的需求去负责任。所以，如果我们以这样的一种方式去协助他人去实现他们的需求，那么这种方式他们会有一种倾向，会更乐于去听我们更多的讲解 Krishna 知觉。
Yeah, let's take the example of the six Goswamis of Vrindavan. When they were going around Vrindavan, they would actually give like ordinary advice to the villagers and their families, and when it was needed. So it's not that they were only giving Krishna consciousness, but they were concerned holistically for other people.
那举例来说，就像文大问的六哥斯瓦米，他们经常在文大问四处的游走，那给当地的一些普通的这个村民以及他们的家人，给到他们一些很平常的这样一些就是一些需求的这个帮助。那么，并不是说他们只是去帮助别人，给予他们 Krishna 知觉，而是他们以非常全面的方式去体察他们全面的需求。
I'm finding the best way of giving people, or let's say sharing Krishna consciousness, is to let people see how compassionate devotees are. And when people perceive that, they'll naturally be attracted.
那么我认为，以我观之，最好的去分享或者说给予 Krishna 知觉的方式，就是让他们能够看到奉献者的所传达的这种怜悯。那如果他们看到这种怜悯和仁慈之心的话，他们很容易就受到吸引。
Very few people join, let's say, Krishna consciousness or take up Krishna consciousness because of philosophy. 99.99% of the people take up because of the relationships. I mean, fully take up and absorb themselves in Krishna consciousness because of loving relationships between devotees.
那么我能说，就是很少、极少的人，他们加入 Krishna 知觉是因为他们受哲学的吸引。那么基本上99%的奉献者，他们之所以成为一个全身心投入其中的这样的一个奉献者，就是倾其一生去致力于其中的人，都是他们被这种奉献者之间的爱心关系所吸引。
Rupa Goswami talks about this in the excuse me, in the Upadeshamrita, the Nectar of Instruction, and the famous verse, Dadati Prajagranati Guyam Akyati Prichati Bhunte Bhojate Jaiva. He says that, and Prabhupada also corroborates, that our movement expands because of loving relationships between the members and between people in general.
那么 Rupa Goswami 在他教会的甘露里面就讲到了奉献者之间的这种6种的这样的一种爱心的交流的关系。那么 Papa 也尤其非常强调了这点，他说我们ISKCON 这个Krishna 知觉运动之所以能够扩展，就是因为这个是依赖于这样奉献者之间的爱心关系，以及我们与他人之间、所有人之间这样的一种爱心的关系。
So when I meet people who are not, let's say, practicing Krishna consciousness, I don't have an agenda to sort of trick them into becoming devotees or something like that. I simply want to connect with them, and because I am connected to Krishna, that will connect them, and they'll eventually start asking questions about Krishna consciousness.
那么，当我遇到那些我们说他们尚且还未修习 Krishna 知觉的这样的人群，我并没有说有这样的计划，打算去用什么花招去骗他们，把他骗进来，而是说我只是试图去与他们进行连接，而因为我与 Krishna 连接，所以他们自然而然的也会去询问关于 Krishna 的关系。
For example, I knew the philosophy for Krishna consciousness, of Krishna consciousness, before I became a member of the Krishna consciousness movement, but I didn't want to become a member of the Krishna consciousness movement because people weren't treating me empathically.
那么我在这个成为这个 Krishna 知觉运动的一员之前，我就了解了 Krishna 知觉，但是我为什么就是不想成为其中的一员呢？其实是因为我我不想去因为这个 Krishna 知觉运动的当中的人，他没有很以同理心的去对待我。
Devotees would preach in a very heavy fashion towards me. Basically, the devotees told me that unless I joined the Krishna conscious movement, I was going to hell. So it took me 3 years before I actually became a member of the Krishna conscious movement.
因为当时这个奉献者一种非常这个严重的这样措辞来给我传教， 他说，除非你加入 Krishna 知觉，否则你要下地狱。所以这是为什么我在真正的加入 Krishna 知觉之前，就是犹豫了3年之久。
And the only reason I became a full member of the Krishna conscious movement is because I met Prabhupada in 1971.
那么我为什么后来又成为了 Krishna 知觉中的这个运动中的一员呢？是因为我在1971年我见到了帕布帕。
And I was so overwhelmed with Prabhupada's mood of compassion and love and acceptance and devotion and dedication and spirituality that Prabhupada personally attracted me to surrendering, I guess, for lack of a better word.
因为当时我完全的被帕布帕的这种心态所感染，我被他彻底的征服了。帕布帕的爱，他的这种传教的精神，他的这种爱，他的这种接纳，对我的接纳，以及他的这种奉爱精神和他的这种灵性，他的个人魅力完全的吸引了我，让我足以向他臣服。当然，臣服这个词听起来好像不是那么好。
So if devotees are loving, empathic, and also Krishna conscious, then naturally the whole world will actually be attracted.
那么，所以，这个，所以即便是在 Krishna 知觉当中的这个成员，他们也是因为这种同理心，这样的一种爱所吸引的。实际上，整个世界都是因为这些东西被吸引。
So there's this interesting saying that God has given us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should use the ears twice as much as the mouth.
那么有句话就说，上帝给了我们2只耳朵还有1张嘴，也就是说，我们要用双倍的这种时间去更多的运用我们的耳朵去聆听，而不是用嘴。
So when we're meeting with people, we should let people talk and hear. We should be interested in them. What's your life about? What are your expectations? What are your struggles? What are your challenges? And, just be really interested in people.
所以，当我们遇到这个一个人的时候，我们就让他们去尽情的去说。那我们问一问你的生活怎么样？你的期望是什么？你的挣扎所在又是什么？还有这个就是去让他们去讲述这些，我们就是表现出我们对他们真正的感兴趣。
And then understanding, according to what we've studied with empathic communication, that people, all living entities, not just human beings, they're trying to fulfill their basic needs up to the need of Krishna consciousness.
那么通过我学习这个同理心沟通，那么我发现其实是所有的生物体，还不光是人类，他们都在试图去满足他基本的需求。那么满足他从基本需求一直上升到他们最终要满足 Krishna 知觉这一需求的所有的需求。
Okay, so let's go to the next question.
Yes, next question from Gaurangi Priya Mataji. 有时在工作和家人中遇到对方不理解和责备时，这时做不到共情的时候，只观察到对方的表现，此时觉得很委屈很伤心，同时自己心结打不开。请问 Guru， 这时应该怎么处理？或者需要耐心认真聆听对方的述说吗？So when we deal with our workmate or our family members, when we got misunderstanding from the other party or get some blame from them, we are not unable to use easy communication, and we can only observe what others are doing to us, and we may feel very depressed and very sad, and we cannot overcome this. So how can we deal with that? We need to still try to listen to others.
Yeah. So the whole point is you use empathic communication, let's say the consciousness, I'm not going to use the word techniques, the consciousness of empathic communication, you apply it to yourself first. If you're feeling sad, figure out, your own feelings and needs.
那么去使用这个同理心沟通，当然我在这里不用这个技巧这一词，我们不是说使用同理心技巧，而是说你需要运用同理心沟通的知觉，然后去把这个运用到自己身上。首先去运用自我的这样的一种共情。你比如说你感受到悲伤，那你去明白自己为什么会有这样的感受，还有自己的需求究竟是什么。
And take responsibility for your own feelings and needs, because you may be thinking that the other person made you sad, but nobody could make you sad or happy or glad or mad, because you're responsible for your own feelings and needs. And of course, that's the block of communication, which I believe you learned about, denial of responsibility.
那么你需要对自己的，首先你要对自己的感受和需求负责任。你可能会认为是别人导致了我沮丧，但实际上没有人能够让你感受到快乐或者是忧伤，并不是别人能够让你或者说让你变得疯狂，这些都不是别人导致的。实际上一个人，你是需要为自己的这个感受和需求负责的。那么当然这个你可能也已经学到了，在这个阻断沟通过程中的这种否认自己的责任，这个是阻断这个同理心的一个阻断的一个因素所在。
Okay, I'll give you a practical example of that. Let's say someone calls me a rascal. And if they call me a rascal, then naturally I may feel sad because they called me a rascal. But they have not made me sad. It's my need for appreciation and understanding. And that's actually the cause, my need, my responsibility, not them. They have not made me sad.
那么我举个实际的例子，比如说有个人骂我混蛋，那么很自然的，我听到他这么说我会感到很悲伤。但是实际上，并不是这个人说我这个导致了我的悲伤，这实际上在这种情形下，是因为我需要被理解和需要这个被欣赏这两个需求没有得到满足，所以是我的这个需求，我有责任去为这个需求负责，而不是对方是导致我这个感受的真正原因。
I'm responsible for my own feelings and needs, and you're responsible for your own feelings and needs. And so I will just try to understand why I'm feeling a certain way and take full responsibility for it.
那么我为我自己的这个感受和需求负责，你为你的感受和需求负责，而我只是试着去理解为什么我会有这样的感受，并且我完全的为我的感受和需求负责。
Okay, good question. So next.
那非常好的问题，我们进行下一个问题。Our next question 有时在职场上要求精准对话，在其他场合还带有目的的和人交流，认为这不是沟通，反而是折磨自己，是互相折磨。这样应该怎么做呢？So when we during our time when we are in the workplace, we have to talk with others with particular purpose, and I think it's not the communication, it's a torturing communication. We torture each other. So how to deal with that?
We torture each other. Why are you torturing each other? You should well, basically it means to see others as simply acting to fulfill their needs. And even if they're doing something, I mean, you can not like what they're doing. You can not like what they're doing, but uh, to not like them, that's another thing. Even the strategies that they're taking to fulfill their needs may be really bad, as we say in English. It may stink, but the person itself is themselves is just trying to fulfill the needs. That's the way to see it.
那么就是为什么说我们要互相的彼此折磨呢？那基本上来说，我们应当看到他人就是看作他们都是有需求的这样的一个个体所以我们也许不喜欢他们做的事情，但是我们不能说我们不喜欢他们这个人本身，这两者之间有很大的区别。那么就是我们要看到对方都是有这种需求的这种一种生物体。那么如果你认为你需要就是为对方的这样的一种他的这个或者说对方需要就是我们要为彼此的感受和需求负责的话，那么这种想法是很糟糕的。那用我的这个话来说，就是这个想法真的是臭极了。那么，所以你应当以这样的视角去看待他人，他们只是去有着相应需求，需要去满足自己需求的这样的一个生物体。
Okay, let's give the example. Let's say you're attacked by a tiger, and the tiger is trying to eat you. So the tiger is just trying the tiger is just trying to fulfill his need for food.
那我来举
So
个例子，sorry，yes，
go ahead. Yeah, translate.
那我举个例子，比如说有个老虎，那么这个老虎它来吃你，那么这个老虎其实在此它只是为了满足它要吃东西的这样的一个需求。
Yeah, the tiger is not bad. The tiger is just trying to fulfill its basic need because it needs to eat.
我们不能说这个老虎它本身很坏，这个老虎它只是在满足它的基本的需求，它对食物的需求。
I mean, if you were a tiger, you'd be running after human beings too.
就如果你自己也是老虎的话，那你也可能追着人背后跑。
And you have a basic need to protect yourself, so you run away. So everybody's, in all the situations, everybody's just trying to fulfill needs.
那么在这种情形下，你也有你基本的需求，你要去防卫自己，所以你会逃开。所以在任何一种情况下，那么就是人们总是在试图去满足，只是存在这些人，他们都是在试图去满足自己的需求，如此而已。
So if you're in a workplace and you're feeling that you're just feeling like vulnerable because the interactions are not very pleasing, then try to understand your own feelings and needs and develop a strategy. And then once you've understood those, you can understand how someone else is just acting to fulfill their feelings and needs, and you can be more compassionate with them. And most likely, the interactions will calm down after that point. The negative interactions, the conflicts.
那么就像你说，你在这个工作场合，然后你感到就是非常的脆弱，或者说感到沮丧，因为这些跟别人打交道都是非常的不愉快。然后，那么你可以在此去明白、去理解自己的这个感受和需求是什么，然后去为自己的需求去满足自己的需求，去发展出就是制定相应的这个策略，去满足实现自己的需求，然后试着以这样的一种同理心的方式去看待他人，看到他们只是要去满足他们的需求，以这样的一种方式，以这样去，你就会发展出一种对他们的怜悯之情，以这样的一种方式去看待他们，然后如此的话，那种非常折磨的这样的一种不健康的交流方式会逐渐的就是减少。
Okay. Next.
Yes， 如果一个人总是把一件事站在自己的角度认知，无法达到共情，此时应该怎么做？If someone always stuck in his own mind, he cannot use EC communication. How to deal with them when we communicate with him?
Try to understand his feelings and needs. If he's stuck in his mind, then what are his feelings? His feelings, I mean, if I had to guess, this is just a guess, his or her feelings would be fear. Fear, because why are people fearful? Because they have a need to protect themselves. They're scared because they have a need, but they can't. They're just self-protection. Yeah, that's self-protection. So I would simply understand that. You don't have to say anything. Because if someone's simply in their mind, if you tell them you're just on the mental platform, that'll make them go further into the mind. So just be empathic with them, and somehow or other, it may get through to them. If you're just empathic, you don't have to say anything, just be understanding, be accepting them, and the communication is sometimes miraculous in that regard.
那么遇到这种，我们只是在这种情形，我们只是需要去理解对方的这个感受和需求，试着去理解对方。那对方他这个陷入自己的这个角度的这个认知，他没有办法，去这个，我们可以去试着去猜测对方的此时此刻的这种感受。那么他也许在这种情况下感受到是恐惧，那他为什么恐惧呢？那么他可能是有一种需要，这个感受背后可能是一种需要得到保护的一种需求。因为当人得不到保护的时候，人们会感到恐惧。那么你仅仅只是去试图去理解对方，你不用说什么，你什么话都不用讲，因为在这个时候你说太多的话，反而会更多的陷入这种心智的麻烦、心智思辨的麻烦中。这个时候你只是用同理心试着去理解对方，然后去接受对方。那这样的沟通有的时候会达到非常非常奇妙的结果。
Okay.
Yes.
Um,
If I may interrupt, Maharaj, we typically take a 5-minute mid-session break. Would now be the time for us to do that.
All right. What happens during the break?
Just go use the bathroom or get some water, or just disappear, and we come back in 5 minutes.
Okay. Great. 5-minute break.
好的，现在我们5分钟休息时间，我们5分钟之后再见。
Shall we resume, Maharaj?
Whatever you like, you're the boss.
Okay, want to call on Mula and Mataji to ask her question.
那么现在莫兰妈她这请回答，就是我们来就是回答你的问题。莫兰妈她你举手了，是要解除下静音，直接问好吗？
Hare Krishna，我是刚刚在听到老师在说，这个感受和需求都是由个人来负责和满足的。那么就是我当时举手的话是想问，如果各自满足需求或者是感受，那为什么我们要寻求合作？这是第一个点。第二个点是，那这个是不是有年龄的限制？因为对于抚养孩子的话，我们是在满足孩子的需求和关注孩子的感受，而并不是不理会他们，让他们自我满足。Hare Krishna。
So Maharaj, you just mentioned that everyone should be responsible for their own needs and feelings. So why we need cooperation with others? And another question is that is this that one needs to be responsible for his own needs, maybe not applied for the very young children, right?
That's actually a very good point. Actually, two questions. One of our basic needs is to be concerned for others, to be compassionate. So we're not proposing something that's extremely selfish, just practical, because when we connect with others, even this is built into all living entities, including animals. So you can translate that.
那实际上我们都有一个基本的需求，就是我们希望都与他人去连接，有这种怜悯的，就是去施展我们的怜悯的这样的一种需求。我并不是在此主张一种极为这个同理心沟通，不是主张这种就是为自己负责，并不是主张一种自私的极度的这种自私，实际上只是提供了一种非常实际的一种操作的一种角度。实际上不光是在不光是人类啊，包括所有的生物体在内，它都有这样的需求。
So anyway, our need is to help others. Let me give an example about animals. Once upon a time, there was a lady who was scuba diving, and there was a whale that kept pushing her and pushing her. Eventually, she looked after about a half an hour and discovered that whale was feeling compassionate to her. The whale was trying to keep her away from a shark. So even in animals, there's that basic need to help others, be compassionate to others.
那我可以给你举一个例子，一个关于动物的例子，就是动物也是有这样的去想给别人施予怜悯的这样的一种需求的。那就是在很多年前，有一个女士她在潜水，在潜水的过程中发现有一条这个很大的这种巨鲸，就是在不停的推她。当然我们知道，就是巨鲸它不吃人，但它为什么老是推它呢？它半个小时之后才明白，这只很巨大的鲸鱼，它只是为了去保护它，免遭附近的这个鲨鱼。所以你看，即便是动物，它也有这种想要去帮助别人、想要去施予自己的怜悯的这样一种基本的需求。
So as far as the other question about children, that was a very interesting question, because the children definitely make demands of their parents.
那么关于这个孩子的问题，的确挺有意思的。那当然，这个非常小的孩子当然是需要这个父母来照管的。
But the parents should hear that as requests and understand, because they have a need. This is a very specific situation, but they have a need to fulfill the needs of their children, and that's very specific in relationship to parents and children.
那么就是在父母和孩子之间的这种关系是非常这种特别的关系。那父母应当去聆听这个孩子的请求，去理解这个孩子有什么样的需求， 当然，父母应当去帮助他们去实现这个孩子的需求。这个孩子与这个父母之间的关系是非常特别的一种关系。
But it's very important for parents to be aware of which needs the children have for them to fulfill. Because sometimes a parent will misunderstand. Let's say if the child's crying, the child may have a need for food, and the parent may think, well, the child just has a need for something else. So the parent has to be very empathic with the child to understand the needs.
那父母的这个角色就是关键，他需要去识别出他究竟这个孩子究竟是发出哪一种需求，他是需要我去满足的。因为有的时候孩子哭，那父母可能认为他是需要食物，但这个孩子可能只是需要食物，但是父母可能会以为他需要别的东西。所以在这个角色当中，父母就是至关重要一点，他又要去以同理心的这种方式去明白孩子的真正需求是什么。
So until the child differentiates itself from the parent, one can even consider that the parent and the child function as one entity.
那么，在一个孩子他有这种就是自我意识的这种区分，认为自己和父母是割离开的这种个体之前，实际上年幼的孩子和父母是作为一个整体被考虑的。
There's a type of parenting that's called attachment parenting, in which the child basically rides around with the parent for the first year or two, and that's been shown to be very effective because basically it's almost, I mean, they are two entities, but they're functioning in one sense like one entity.
那么有一个特别的这种语汇，就是说这个父母有一个阶段，就是这种依附型的这样的这种育儿阶段，那就是孩子1到2岁的期间，那孩子基本上他和父母是同息同坐的，同坐息的这样的一个状态。尽管是2个个体，但实际上是以一个个体这样的方式来运作的。
And when the child gets to be about 2 years or a little bit more of age, then the child begins to assert his or her independence from the parents.
那当孩子长到2岁或者说以上的时候，这个孩子就会有一种倾向，他有一种想要就是辨别、区分开自己和父母之间的，主张自己这种独立性的这样一种倾向。
Many parents get upset with this, and they call that the terrible twos. But actually, it's just the child expressing its need for autonomy.
那很多父母会把这个2岁2岁的这个独立的这个阶段被称为是可怕的2岁，但实际上他们不能理解，这个孩子只是在通过种种方式去表达他们这种独立性的这样的一种需求。
So in the specific situation of parent and child, yes, the parent is the need-fulfilling agent for the child in many respects. But if the parent continues to be that for like 30 years, you're going to destroy the child's autonomy.
当然，我们就说这是在特别的一个阶段，那非常年幼的这种阶段是这样。但如果这种育儿方式持续进行，随着孩子成长持续进行下去的话，那这将对孩子会造成非常毁灭性的影响。
Like if the child is 30 years old and asking the mother to still clean her clothes or clean his clothes, that's very dysfunctional.
就假设说，我们让这种育儿模式持续个30年，这个孩子30岁的时候还让他妈妈给他洗衣服，那这种状况就是非常非常糟糕的。
So as the child grows up, the mother has to learn gradually how to cut the apron strings, so to speak.
那么这个孩子会非常的就是变得非常的无能，被限制的。然后那我们说这个时候就需要剪断他与这个母亲之间的脐带。
Yeah, I know a lot of 50-year-old babies.
那我知道有很多这种50岁的这种巨婴。
Because they're overly dependent upon the mother, and the mother is codependent with the child.
因为这些人，他即便50岁了，他仍然非常的依赖他的母亲，而他的母亲也相应的以一种方式依赖他的孩子。
Just like when I decided to join the Krishna consciousness movement, my mother said to me, "How can you do this to me?" referring to herself.
那比如说我举例来说，当我决定加入 Krishna 知觉的时候，我妈当时就问我，就质问我说：“你怎么能这样对我？”
She said, "You're killing me."
她当时说：“你这是要我的命。”
Like I was responsible for her emotional well-being.
好像就是我要对她这种情绪这种大发要负责任一样。
Of course, I, as a fanatic new devotee, was thinking, well, if she dies thinking of me, she goes back to Godhead, so it's okay.
当然，我有遇到就非常激进狂热的奉献者，他们会说：“哎，那我妈想着我，她死的时候还能想着我，她能回归手圣也挺好的。”
So I basically had to break the apron strings, and she lived for another 50 years after that.
那么我基本上在这个情况下做的就是剪断这种脐带。那么我母亲也在这之外，她多活了50年。
Because she didn't respect my need for autonomy, but I asserted my need for autonomy.
当然，她并没有说去为我的这个实现我的这个独立性做什么，但是我却是主张了我的这样的独立性，我为我的这个独立性达成我的独立性做出了努力。
So when the parents try to make all the decisions for the children when the children are actually adults, it destroys the children's ability to make decisions for themselves.
所以，如果父母在孩子已经成年的时候，仍然为他们的这个选择负责的话，那么孩子就会丧失他的这种为自己的选择负责的这种独立的这种技能。
So in other words, gradually the mother has to allow the children to fulfill their own needs, but it's gradual from, 0 to, I guess, 17 or something like that, or 18.
那么，所以是这种渐进的方式，让孩子去逐渐去实现自己他们自己的需求。当然，这是从0，那么到这个70到80的这样的一个渐进的一个过程，就让孩子逐渐达到这个满足自己需求的这样一个过程。
Of course, the parents can always do something for the children, and the children can always do something for the parents. But that's voluntarily from their hearts, not because they have to. It's not a demand. They have to do it. But they're doing it because they choose to do it. They're happy to do it.
那么，其实父母始终可以为孩子做点什么，孩子也同时始终都可以一直为父母可以做点什么。但是这是一种在自愿的情况下进行的，而不是说我不得不去做什么事。那么这就变成了一种强硬的这种要求。相反，这是我选择去做，是我快乐的，我很乐意去做。
So that's really an important distinction. That even when the mother is taking care of the children, she shouldn't be thinking, I have to do it. She should be thinking, I'm choosing to do this because I love my children, I care for them.
那么这个在为人父母来说是非常重要的一个心态，就是他甚至即便是一个母亲，她不能说我不得不去做一些事情，而是说我要选择为我的孩子去照顾我的孩子等等。
Now, in one sense, of course, she does have to take care of her children. We understand that. But she shouldn't be thinking that she's forced to do it. She should be thinking, I want to do it, I'm choosing to do it.
当然，从一种角度来说，的确，这个父母他是有一种义务性的，他必须要这么去照顾他的孩子，但是他不应当以这样的思维方式去认为他是被强迫去这么做的。他应当去想是我是愿意去照顾我的孩子。
Just like I'm chanting my rounds every day. I have to chant my rounds every day. But I'm not thinking I have to. I'm thinking I'm choosing to. And that way it becomes much more pleasant and I'm much more connected to the holy names.
那举例来说，就像我每天都要念诵圣名，这是义务，我的确必须要去念诵圣名，但我不会这样去想，我不得不念诵圣名，而是我去想，我选择去念诵圣名，以这样一种方式，我与圣名有了更有效的这种连接，而且这个念诵变得更加的愉快。
Yeah, so I understand there's two different things going on. On one level, yes, this is my vow, this is my promise. But on the emotional level, the mental level, it's my vow, my promise. But on the emotional level, it's I'm choosing to do this because I want to please Prabhupada.
当然，这个理解的确有两个层面。第一个层面是，的确是我因为我发下了誓言，我许诺过，所以我的确要去这么做。但另外一个是情感方面的层面，那就是说我选择这么做，是因为我想要取悦帕布卡。
So, what you're doing in this world, for whatever mental reason, should be phrased emotionally from the heart that you're choosing to do it, and then you'll be happy doing even the most menial thing.
那么你在这个世间做任何样的事情，那么你在你的心态上都应当转换成这样一种我选择去做的一种自愿的心态，即便是一些非常微不足道的事情。
For example, let's go back to the mother again. The mother has to change the diapers of the child. And,
那让我们呀，
and so changing the diapers of the child is probably, it's probably a little austere. Maybe not. And so she has to choose. So she should think in her mind, I'm choosing to do this because I love this child. And when you're connected with the heart, every activity becomes pleasant when you're choosing to do something.
那让我们再回到母亲的这个例子，母亲她要为孩子换尿布，去换这个尿不湿。那当然，这个肯定是一种苦行，我猜是一种苦行。但是如果他说我选择去这么做，是因为我爱这个孩子，那么这个就是与孩子产生了一种爱心的连接，而且这个事情也就变得非常的愉快。
That's why when dealing with children, when you want them to do something, it's better to explain to them, take the time and explain the reason why it is in their interest to do that particular thing.
这就是为什么在和孩子打交道的过程中，当你想让孩子做一件事情的时候，你需要花些时间去解释，那为什么你让他这么做，要让他明白你的这个兴趣点所在，让他明白他为什么要去做这件事情。
You should never deal with children in terms of rewards or punishments.
你永远都不应当去以一种奖励和惩罚的模式、奖惩模式去对待你的孩子。
For example, when I was young, my mother gave me a reward for doing well in school. That reward was money.
那么举我的例子来说，当我上学的时候，我妈会因为我就是在学校表现良好，她会给我一些奖励。那这个奖励的形式就是给我钱。
It didn't make me like studying because it was disconnected from the activity itself.
他这么做并没有让我爱上学习，因为实际上他这么做把我和这个之间就是这种连接进行了一种割裂。
She should have explained to me why studying is helpful in terms of achieving my goals in life. And that way I would have been more enthusiastic rather than dangling a carrot in front of me.
那么，如果说我的母亲跟我解释为什么学习能够帮助我更好的去实现这个我想要达成的目标的话，那么我可能会更有热情去学习，而不是说他只是在我面前掉了一个胡萝卜。
And when my mother punished me for doing something, it made me want to do that thing even more. That I got
而当
punished.
我，sorry，那么当我的母亲因为我做一些事情做出惩罚我的这个举动的时候，我反而更加的反叛，我更想去做她不让我做的事情。
So rewards and punishments, or using rewards and punishments, is not a good way to train children up.
所以，这个奖励和惩罚都是训练孩子非常这种糟糕的策略。
I mean, for example, my mother sometimes spanked me as a punishment, and that just makes me more rebellious. Even today, I'm extremely rebellious because of what happened when I was a child.
那我的母亲当时会惩罚我，她会打我的屁股，那么这个会导致我更加的反叛，以及导致我现在就是成年这么久，我还是有一种反叛的精神在里面，都是因为我童年的这样的一种经历。
So whatever happens when we're children affects us for the rest of our lives. For example, my mother used to force me to take the dirty clothes and put them in a place. And now I can't do that anymore. I can just throw my clothes away and expect some disciple to clean them.
那么，比如说我的母亲，那么其实一个孩子他的童年经历的东西会贯穿这个影响，会贯穿他的一生。那么我的母亲，在我小的时候，她会强迫我把脏衣服拿到特定的这个地方，但是那我现在会更加的反叛，那我会把我的脏衣服扔给我的门徒，让他们来把我的这个脏衣服洗掉。
So in other words, forcing me to do things through rewards, punishments, or whatever had the opposite result long term.
所以一言以蔽之，就是你或者用奖励或者惩罚来逼我做某件事情，只会产生事与愿违的结果。
Okay, more questions.
Yes, she read the commodity. 我们稍微like a little more. Yeah. Okay. When David Daisy，请提你的问题吧。我看到你举手了。
Hare Krishna，非常感恩老师带给我们的这个解释。我有一个问题是，我曾经在成为奉献者之前，在中国的其他地方学习过非暴力沟通。那么在那个课件上课的时候，我们在做练习，然后我的老师就要求我不能说，在共情自我的时候不能说，我有被理解、被爱和被赞赏，这样类似于被这样怎么样的这种需求。然后他是要求我说，我就因为他说他给的那个理由是我本具足嘛，就是我们中国人说的我本来就是圆满的，所以我们只能说，我有理解、赞赏和爱的需求，但是在接下来就是很长一段时间，我在练习和在实践的过程当中，每一次我自我共情的时候，我这么说我就觉得很别扭。然后我觉得我自己明明就有就是被赞赏、被理解这样的一个需求，我觉得我不是人，尤其是进入奉爱，然后这一次跟随老师一起再一次学习这个共情天性的时候，我就感觉，我觉得我明明就是有被别人赞赏的这种需求的，为什么我一定要说我就是不要那个去掉那个被？那么这既然就是说赞赏和这些是人类的基本需求，那么我到底就是我的问题就是说，到底我们应该说我有被赞赏、被爱的需求，还是说就像我那个中国老师说的一样，就是我们只能说我有赞赏和爱的需求？这是第一个问题。我先提纲，您先翻译。
好的。So Maharaj, you mentioned that about the communication with empathy. And actually, in China, I have studied some courses on nonviolent communication. And during that seminar, the teacher told us we should not use such kind of words like "I need to be loved." Instead, we should say "I have a need for love." Actually, she practically didn't encourage us to use the phrase that I need to be loved or understood or something, but I need for something. It seems very impersonal, because in my opinion, I think I do have a need for appreciate by others. Why is she just let us see that I have a need for something? It's kind of a disconnection with others.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the reason your teacher was teaching that was that sometimes if someone says, "I have a need for that," that it will appear to the other person that you're demanding it. So
Yeah.
that's the danger of saying, I have a need for food. So if I say that to someone, like I'm at someone's house, like I say if I'm at Sri Radhika's house, and I say I have a need for food, then she'll take that. Okay, I have to do something. So I don't think it's the words so much. I think it's that's why I tend to get away from which words people use, rather the mood that they use those words in and the body language. I could say I need food, or I could say I need food. There's two different ways of saying it. I don't think it's the phraseology. I think it's really your intention that really communicates things. Does that make sense?
Yes, Mahar. I translate first.
Yeah.
那你提出了一个非常好的要点。那实际上，在我看来，你这个老师之所以讲到这个，实际上可能是出于这样一种考虑，他可能认为如果说我们需要别人怎么样，这可能更像是一种这种对他人的一种要求。这个可能因为当我们发出要求的这个信号是挺危险的，就是我们需要要求别人。那么我举一个例子来说，如果我在 Sri Radhika 这个 Mataji 家里的时候，我大声的说我需要食物，那么这个时候，那 Sri Radhika 他肯定会，那听到我这么大喊大叫，他肯定要紧张，要做点什么，他需要食物或者怎么样。那么实际上就我而言，我一直在避免强调这个措辞这个决定了一切。实际上我更强调的是这种你措辞背后的这种心态，还有你的这个知觉。所以我尽量去避免这个，就是关于这个措辞这一块，因为这并不是这个同理心沟通，它并不是一个措辞本身的问题，它关乎背后的这个更多的是背后的知觉，还有你背后的这种，你的这种，你背后的动机是什么？那么同样的一句话，我说我需要食物，我可以以不同的语调来进行，所以有的时候这个语调和这个肢体动作更多的传达出来了，就是传达出远远比你的这个措辞更重要的这个更多的讯息，产生更多的效应。所以，这并不是一个措辞的问题。有道理吗？
Yeah, my feeling is if we get too much into the words themselves, um, then we get away from the consciousness, which is not really productive as far as empathic communication. I wouldn't I wouldn't really tell people how to use words. I would try to help people understand the right consciousness to approach things in. And then naturally the right tone of voice and the right body language will be there. Otherwise you can even say like I have a need. Well, it said my need is for my need is for food. So you could say it. You could say it with any words, but the body language speaks louder and the tone of voice speaks louder than the words. So I think it just becomes a big mental. This is my opinion. It just becomes a big mental headache when you have to think about what words to use. I never think about what words to use. I think about what is my consciousness, or I go to the heart. So what I'm trying to do with teaching empathic communication is take our consciousness from the brain to the heart. And so if you go to the heart, then the natural words, the right words will come out. And even if the right words don't come out, the right body language and the right tone of voice will come out. And if someone doesn't understand it, that's their problem. It's not your problem. Don't own other people's problems. Or you can clarify it. Like if I say, I have a need for food, but I'm not demanding. I have a need for food, so I want to go. Can I borrow your car to go to the supermarket to buy some food? I know that you're really busy right now. So, and then you say voluntary. No, I'm happy to cook for you. Then it's the mood. It's the mood. It's not the words. Try to. Yeah, some of the trainers they really get into the words, but it's not the words. It's the mood.
那么我在你这种你讲的这种情况下，我感觉到他们好像更太多的就是陷入这种计较的这种措辞方面了，而不是背后而远离了这个根本，就是这个知觉。那么同理心沟通，它实际上并不是太强调这个措辞。我教授同理心沟通的时候，我并不强调你该怎么措辞啊等等，而是我去教授人们，更多的去关注它背后的你背后应该有怎样的动机、怎样的心态、怎样的知觉。否则的话，那么这并不是达到同理心同理心的沟通，因为与此同时，就是你有了正确的知觉之后，你自然的会有这个恰当的语调，还有你的这个肢体语言去表达。那么，即便你的措辞是怎样的，但是你的只要你有恰当的知觉，其实你的不管你怎么样措辞，实际上你的这个语调，你背后的这种心态，这个肢体语言都能够去传达出来你的这个背后真正的这个动机。所以这个绝对不是措辞的这个本身的问题。那么我是强调讲究这个同理心沟通是希望主张是让我们从这个头脑的层面，真的是深入到内心的层面。那同理心沟通，那它一旦我们进入这个内心的层面，这个才是这个达成真正的这个沟通的这种核心。那么并不只是措辞的问题，比如说关于我需要这个食物的这样的一种措辞，那我以不同的这种语调，那么它传达出来的信息都是不一样的。如果是而且在这种情况下，其实你可以去恰当的去做出一些澄清，就是当你表达不清楚这种需求的时候，你可以去做相应的澄清或解释你的需求。那么这种情况下就会有一种对话，那对方可能说他的现在这个情况太忙了，他没有办法去超市来帮你解决食物的需求。那么或者说对方也可能说我现在有时间，我可以乐意为你去烹饪，就是所以这个是关乎的是背后的这个知觉，而并不是这个措辞本身，这个词语这个并不是起太大作用。
Wow, that was a long explanation. So anyway, so I'm just sharing my needs. I have a need for water. I have a need for food, and it's just tone of voice and intention. Intention. Okay. So other questions?
所以我只是去分享我的表达我的需求的对食物或者对水的这种需求。那么只是这关乎背后的这种动机和心态而已，那么以及你传达的出来这种语调那么我们来看别的问题Hari Valabi Mataji， 我看到你举手了。
Yeah. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances to your lotus feet. Thank you. Yeah. My question is, parents love their children very much, but always there is no empathic in the love. Like my mother loved me very much, but I think the love is much more to control. So how to deal with this situation? And maybe this kind of person themselves, they don't realize this problem. So how can we help them to have empathic? And if don't practice, they will never have empathic. I wonder. I don't know. Hare Krishna.
Good question. Do you want to?
我翻译一下I will say Chinese. 我的问题是，就是很多父母都非常爱自己的孩子哈，但是我觉得这种爱里面好像没有太多的同理心在这里面，所以就是我们怎么样来去对待这种情况？因为我觉得这种类型的人，他们更多的自身都没有意识到说他们没有同理心，因为他们觉得自己对别人是有爱的就是很关心别人。 所以就是我们怎么样去让这些人意识到这一点，然后帮助他们能够获得同理心。而且我很就疑惑，就是说是不是如果不经过练习的话，这些人就永远不可能说展示出或者是具备同理心。Hare Krishna.
So you actually pointed out something that's very common in relationship between parents and children, and the parents are trying to fulfill their needs through the children. It's called codependency. You translate.
那么你其实提到了一个就是非常普遍的处在这个父母和孩子之间的这样的一种关系。那么父母总是试图去满足孩子的这样的需求，但是孩子实际上他有的sorry, Mahar, could you repeat this?
The parents are trying to fulfill their needs through the children. It's called codependency.
Oh yeah, OK, thank you, Maharaj. 那就是父母他有时候会试图，就是通过实现孩子的这个需求去达成自己的目的，所以这被称为了一种互相的这种互赖的关系。
I don't think there's anything you can do about it. I think you just have to understand. You have to understand that they're responsible for their needs and you're responsible for your needs, but you're not going to change someone by telling them that. You know, it's just like it's part of the parent disease, basically speaking. That, but if you can actually tell them, I mean, one thing is that you can actually tell them how you feel when they're trying to fulfill their needs. That may help. You could say to the, I mean, it's a little complicated. You can say to them, when you're asking me to do this because you say it makes you happy, would you be willing to hear how I feel? In other words, being vulnerable. So translate that.
那么，就是他们需要为自己的这样的负责，这样的一种，有时候父母你单独是去告诉他们，需要去这么去做，其实是无济于事的。你不能只是通过告诉他们该怎么做就改变他们。那我把这个称为是这个父母的一个父母的一种父母病。那么实际上，就是你应当去告诉他们的是，不是说他们应当怎么做，而是说你去告诉他你有怎样的感受，去传达你的感受。比如说，当你要求我这么做的时候，你愿意听听我此时此刻的感受吗？
Like, for example, let me give a practical example. My mother said, I want you to be a doctor. And I said, why? And she said, because it would make me happy. And so, of course, I didn't understand empathic communication then. So instead, I just said, my business is not to make you happy. So that was not an empathic way to respond. And then I'll give you the empathic way after you translate this.
Yes. 那我举例来说，我母亲她原来在我年轻的时候就说，我妈就一直说，我希望你成为一个医生。然后我就说为什么？然后我妈就会说，因为这会让我感到很快乐。然后当时我是不懂同理性沟通的，于是我当时以一种非常不同理性的方式回答她说，我的职责就是让你不开心。所以那么我接着会给出一个同理心的这种答复。
All right, and then so the empathic way to respond, which I didn't know about at that time, would be, when I hear you say this, Mother, I feel scared because I have a need to make my own choices in life. And then I would ask her, can you please reflect what I just said? And she would respond, okay?
Yes. 那么 当然我当时并不懂这个同理心沟通，但是我现在明白同理心沟通。我以这样一种方式，同理心沟通的方式引导我，可能会说，当我听到我妈说她想让我成为医生的话，那我可能会说，其实我听到你这么说，我感到很恐惧。
And then she would reflect it. She'd probably say, "You don't like me."
那可能我母亲会
And
做出
then I
相应的
would
反应。她
then I
说
would have to say, "No, I love you very much. I just want you to understand me. Would you be willing to just, reflect in your own words what I just said to you?" So we'd go back and forth a few times.
Yes，那么我的母亲听我这么说，她可能会有听到我这么说，我感到恐惧，只听到我表达我的感受，她可能会说你不爱我，然后我可能会说我是爱你的，诸如此类，我们之间可能会产生很多的这样的这种交流。
So then once she understood my need by reflecting what I just said, and there would be more likelihood of her understanding that I'm an individual and not part of her body anymore. Because mothers generally think that children are part of their bodies. I mean, that was the argument I got from my mother all the time, that I carried you for 9 months, and look what you've done to me after 9 months carrying you. That's called a guilt trip. I'm sure you've all experienced that same thing.
Yes，那当我更多的去就是反映我母亲的这种看法的话，那她最终会明白，其实我是一个独立的个体，我再也不是她身体中的一部分了。我知道母亲通常会把孩子视作是自己身体不可分割的一部分。像我经常和我母亲争论的一点就是，我妈总会跟我说：“你知道我怀了你怀了足足9个月，你看看你现在你对我做了什么。”我想这个她就会通过这种方式来让我感到很内疚。我想你们当中很多人都有这样的经历吧。
Okay, good question. So, what other questions do we have?
I think we have time for one last question. And Pushpa, Priya, Radha.
Okay.
Pushpa Priya Radha Mataji. Haribo. Pushpa Priya Mataji. Yeah.
Haribo 要开视频吗？
对，最好打开视频吧，会这样比较好一点。
好的，顶拜 Guru Maharaj， 顶拜奉献者。我学习了这个同理心沟通之后，我跟我以前就是跟人沟通跟人的关系，感觉是很大的变化。以前的沟通都是在心意的层面，都是假设、猜测，都是有控制欲，都是有依附欲来跟人沟通的。现在，学习了同理心沟通，我明白了这个同理心沟通，它是心态，它是一个那个知觉，它是从根上解决了一个我们的最关键的问题，就是从我们的心意层面出来到我们的灵魂层面，然后呢就相当于就是用灵性来解决我们的所有的物质的问题了。就是说也就是说其实我们体验到的所有的一切都是跟我们的心态和我们的知觉是有关系的。所以呢如果我们就是要搞好这个同理心沟通这个层面，这个要求好像是很高很高的，不是一般的能做到这个同理心沟通的。你起码得有洞察力，得有觉知力，因为你的心态要有怜悯心的话，那洞察力和觉知力是你那个怜悯心的根基。所以呢，我觉得是不是就是我们要首先 要就是把 Krishna 知觉休息好，然后呢就是有了有个比较高的那个视觉，然后视域能从高的角度来看，才观察，然后能就是理解一些事情的发生，然后呢所以呢就是在这个有观察力之后才可以能感觉到自知，能观察到自知，能观察到别人的需求。所以呢当我们那个就是 Krishna 知觉要努力修习的话，我们就觉知就越来越细腻，就越能看到一些细微的东西，也能感受到其他人的感受，然后我们就能跟别人有相处的时候就觉得很舒服，这样的呢就有了一种爱心的关系。就跟刚才古鲁说的，就是说你有了爱心的关系才能吸引就是才能传播 Krishna 知觉，才能吸引更多的人加入 Krishna 知觉。所以我就觉得是不是刚才古鲁也说了要练习，是不是要同理心沟通和这个我们修习 Krishna 知觉做奉爱服务同步来进行，这样的呢我们有修习了 Krishna 知觉，然后呢我们跟自己会连接之后，又能帮助我们自己修习 Krishna 知觉，然后呢我们又能跟周边的人搞好爱心的关系，又能吸引更多的奉献者，然后呢又有助于传播 Krishna 知觉，这样的呢循环冲到所有的一切问题了，是不是这个意思？我说了那么多，对您是不是翻译有问题了？
没有，我可能会就是我已经明白你的意思了，我可能会浓缩一点。Okay. So Maharaj,
yeah.
Yes. So Maharaj, after I practice the easy communication, which developed by you, it's really made a huge difference in my life. It changed my relationship with others. So I found that it seems like that in order to practice the easy communication, we must have a higher platform that beyond the mind platform, which is Krishna consciousness platform. And I find it requires the ability to feel others' feeling and try to sense others' feeling. So I think it's required the Krishna consciousness in a higher level. So is that my understanding is correct or not? That I think the easy communication and Krishna consciousness should be practiced simultaneously or side by side, that we could get what we want, that we, just like what you said, that we could attract more people into Krishna consciousness.
Yes, actually, that's a very good realization, because you can't really practice empathic communication without Krishna consciousness, and you can't practice Krishna consciousness without empathic communication. Because let me explain why. Because without Krishna consciousness, then you're denying people have a basic need for, spiritual interaction or spiritual. There's no purpose in life, basically, without Krishna consciousness. And the need of everybody is to have a purpose. And without that purpose of Krishna consciousness, or God consciousness, if one is of a different religion, then one can never be fulfilled. So you can translate that.
Yes.
So
Yes. 所以你这个领悟是非常到位的，非常好的一个领悟。那实际上，这个同理心沟通和 Krishna 知觉它是彼此无法割裂的。你不可能说你去单独去进行同理心沟通了，却不具备 Krishna 知觉，这是不可能的事情。因为 Krishna 知觉，如果你没有 Krishna 知觉的话，那我来解释下为什么。那如果你没有 Krishna 知觉，那么你就无法理解其实每个生物体它基本的这种灵性的需求。 如果你不知道人们这个根本的需求是什么，因为每个人的需求背后都有他的目的，那么你不知道他的这个需求，你无法实现他这个目的，也没有办法帮助别人真正的去实现他的终极的这个需求。
And without empathic communication, well, of course, one may not call it like that, but without empathy, one will always remain on the third-class platform of devotional service, which means seeing God in the temple, but not seeing God in everyone's heart, and seeing how everyone is connected with each other. So, to rise, Krishna consciousness means at least rising to what we call the Majjhima platform of devotional service, which basically means to see how we're all connected, to see that everybody is part and parcel of Krishna, and Krishna is in everyone's heart. So that's empathy right there. That's empathic communication.
那么就是你要是要有同理心的去看待他人的话，那你必然会就是我们说在 Krishna 之间有三个水平，那么这个最低等的这个初级的水平和中等的水平和高级的水平。那么如果你没有这个 Krishna，如果没有这个Krishna，没有同理心的沟通去修习 Krishna 知觉的话，那么你只能停留在这个三流的水平，也就是说，你只能去看到Krishna 只在庙宇里面，就神像是在庙宇里面，你没有办法看到每个人心中存在的 Krishna。那么我们说 Krishna 知觉中，也就是说你必须要从这个初级的这个水平，最起码升到这个中级的这个水平，也就是你能看到每个人就是实际上是 Krishna 微小的这个不可分割的组成部分，而每个人之间都是彼此互相连接的。
Okay, that's good. So, do we have time for another question? Or?
Maharaj, I wanted to invite couple sharings and then close.
Okay.
So I want to invite Jaya Radha Mataji from Australia. She can share something. She has not only been part of this group, but she stays up till 11 o'clock in the night. She was part of our previous EC support group. So please go ahead.
那么，sorry， 那么现在 Jaya Radha Mataji 将会去表达她的这个感谢。
Yeah, so Maharaj, I started practice empathy communication just like Sri Radhika Mataji said, and for her previous seminar. And in that seminar, actually, I didn't do very well because I felt I'm just like mechanically just like force myself use the language. And so my children all start to question me, what kind of question have you been attend? Why you talk strange? So and then I felt, oh, this doesn't work for me, So actually for this first one, I attended a few lessons and then I actually dropped. But I know it's something in there I didn't do correct. But then the second time, because the education system want to do this again and with a Chinese translation. So I told myself, okay, I'm gonna give a try again. That this time I think because it's have a Chinese translation and also maybe present a different way. I don't know how, maybe it's timing. I have no idea. But this time I really follow. I think I want to show some big change for me. I think it's really, since I started practice, it seems really helped me be aware of myself and what is my needs and what is my feeling, and okay, behind this feeling, what is really in there. It's really bothered me that much. Before, I think I just can always express my anger and not really go deep inside. And also, and because I have 2 teenage girls and it's facing lots of bigger challenge, and the relationship is gone really dramatic, But that since I started practice and I start to first empathy myself and then try to empathy the children. I think in the last 2 weeks, actually, really slowly, I can tell things change. I think just like thinking, when you start to be angry or you start be judging them or yell to them, and you immediately just maybe just like a few seconds, like you postpone, it's like, okay, hold on. What makes me angry? How I feel? Okay. And then I express my feeling. Okay, what's the needs behind my anger? And then, okay, so first I do that. I think just that a few seconds of pause, it already changed the situation, because you automatically like not angry, and then the emotion level is not as strong, and it's then automatically easy for you to talk and more in the like a calm and a peace way. So, but I think the children also can feel the change, just a small change, and they can feel I try to understand them. Even I still use the really strange language, because it's new for me. I felt new language system, because we've been talking for the last like almost 50 years, and then suddenly you have to change another way and for more caring and thinking. It's a big challenge. And then, but also I realized as how many mistakes I made to this relationship, and how much like a burden I carried on from my parents. But now, actually, even for so many times, I told myself I would never do this to my children. But unconsciously, actually, I did this to my children all the time, but just use it maybe better way. I think it's a better way, but actually it's harming them also. So, but now I really wish I could continually like practice this and continually improve this relationship. And also, why this time I feel I'm so determined to gonna continue practice, because all our Krishna consciousness, our goal is relationship. We want to recover the relation between us and Krishna. So every individual is the same. So I think we should build a healthy relationship with my family. That should be my life goal. And it's not my false ego. Oh, I want to feel better. I want to feel I'm a successful mother. I'm a good mother, or I'm a good something. But just like have a healthy relationship. So I really appreciate Maharaj put this class, and Sri Radhika Mataji put a lot of effort for Chinese devotees, and also she personally give me lots of support and listen my gossipy, my complaining. So I'm really appreciate.
Haribol, did you want to translate that? I'm actually going to Brisbane next week, so.
Oh, so I'm looking forward to see you. Get your association, Maharaj.
All right.
We're going to skip translation for this in the interest of time, and we want to end with Lalita Saki Mataji. She's the organizer of this whole seminar. She's the head of training and development in China, and she wanted to just close with an appreciation for your time, Maharaj.
那么我们现在就是有Lalita Saki Mataji，然后就是作为最后一个总结的陈词，我们结束这个今天的讲课。
Hare Krishna， 顶拜 Maharaj， 顶拜 Sri Radhika Mataji， 顶拜所有的奉献者，所有的荣耀归于 Sri Guru， 所有的荣耀归于圣帕帕德，所有的荣耀归于主 Krishna。亲爱的 Maharaj， 我们怀着期待的心情迎来了3月27号的这两个小时，非常非常的感谢您在百忙这当中抽出2个小时与我们在这里联谊，让我们感到如此的甜美而珍贵。在过去的6个星期的时间里，由于您的这本书，由于是 Radhika Mataji 给我们带来这么好的演绎，让很多的聆听了课程的奉献者呢受益匪浅，同时呢相信他们身边的人呢也因此呢得到了很大的获益很多。那在这里呢，我再次代表他们，包括我本人呢，对 Maharaj 以及是 Radhika Mataji， 包括我们的翻译老师的所有的付出表示感谢。Maharaj， 当我第一次看到您的书的时候，就被深深的吸引。其实在以前呢，我们也看到了很多就是有关非暴力以及共情沟通这一方面的内容，但是它不同的是 您的书充满了 Krishna 知觉，而且我们时时刻刻在字里行间以及是 Radhika Mataji 的讲解当中，都能感受到一份来自 Krishna、来自主、来自奉献者、来自 Maharaj 您的仁慈。你先翻译吧。
由于时间的关系，就是实际上 Radhika Mataji 让我跳过这个就是翻译的环节，因为时间对。
好的。那正因为如此呢，非常希望能够把这本书印出来。前期呢就是 BBT 这一块不方便，那我想呢请求 Maharaj 给我们仁慈，在未来的日子我还会尽自己的努力，通过别的渠道我们去尝试来出版这本书。同时呢，这一次的培训是我们进行的第一次。那实际上在这个培训系统内呢，还有一部分学员没有能够来参加，因为人数的原因。我们希望在明年，急着 Maharaj 的仁慈，如果 Krishna 允许的话，在明年我们将举行第2届这样的培训。到那个时候呢，也期待有更多的奉献者来参与这些。所以在这里呢，感谢 Maharaj， 感谢老师，再次感谢所有参与的奉献者。愿我们呢，在未来的日子里，能够把我们感受到的这一份仁慈和我们所有的收获呢，传播给更多的人，让他们受益。Hare Krishna。
Lalita Sakhi Mataji， 我把最后这一部分就是感谢致辞部分翻译一下，翻译给 Maharaj。So Maharaj, thank you very much because it's such a kind of wonderful seminar, changes everyone's life. This time, due to some issues that not all the devotees could take part in this wonderful seminar, so we would like to conduct a second round for the other devotees next year. So thank you very much. You really gave us.
Thank you for your nice appreciation, and I'll be happy to do this next year. And it's just very inspiring for me to see how everybody is learning empathic communication around the world. I mean, Radhika is doing an amazing job, and it's just like unbelievable. And so, I feel like I'm able to contribute to Prabhupada's mission. It inspires me because I'm contributing to Srila Prabhupada, which is a very important need of mine. So thank you.
那我非常感谢你的对我这番欣赏。那么，而且我也非常就是感谢这 Sri Radhika Mataji， 他这个让这个我看到全世界的人都能够有机会修习这个同理心沟通，真是太令人惊讶了。这全都是他的功劳。而且我之所以感受到非常的这个被你的这个赞赏所鼓舞，是因为看到就是我能够为帕帕帕的这个服务去贡献我的这个一份这个力量。那么这个实现就是为帕帕的服务贡献我的力量，这个是我的一个需求，我实现了这个需求，所以我感到非常的深受鼓舞。
祈祷下一次我们做培训的时候能够再次与 Maharaj 相遇。
So I pray that we could meet you, Maharaj, next year.
Okay, I'll be happy to do this. And just keep practicing. It takes practice to change the mindset from unempathic to empathic. So it's not an intellectual thing. It's a question from the heart. It's a question of practicing. Everybody you meet, even your animals and trees and plants, all living entities, not just human beings. Okay, so should we end now, Shri Radhika?
Yes, His Holiness, dear Krishna Maharaj ki
Jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada ki
Jai. And for anyone that is interested in continuing to practice, we have support groups in English, and Manini Radha Mataji can share my contact information. Haribo.
Haribo. So that's it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.